order the regular monthly meeting of the City of Helotes Planning and Zoning Commission. It is 7:12 on June the 5th. I'd ask the Commission Secretary to call the roll, please.
Greg Michelle.
Here.
Jason Whitman.
Here.
Ron Haza. Joe Edmond. Richard Hawk.
Here.
Mike McLaughlin. Mario Rios. Jeff Wade.
And we have Susan Darst and Rick Schroeder from staff here, and no one from council. All right, we'll get going. Thanks, everyone, for being patient. We have a public hearing tonight to give all interested persons the right to appear and be heard on a request from staff to amend Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapters 34 Environment, 66 Signs, and 98 Zoning by providing for planning and zoning to review and make recommendations to council for final action on commercial developments and single-family residential subdivision developments, exterior lighting, signage, and conceptual designs. We will open public hearing at 7:13. Is there anyone here this evening who wishes to speak to this item? Being that no one is here for that public hearing, we will close it at 7:13. Move to citizens to be heard. Rick, I don't believe we have anyone, so the next item is action on the minutes of the regular meeting of May 1, 2018. Should have received a copy of the minutes in your packet of materials. If there are edits or corrections, please bring them to our attention. Otherwise, a motion would be in order.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Is there a second on the minutes?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor of of approving the minutes as submitted for the meeting on May the 1st, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Item 6 tonight is discussion and action on a request by Grant Lawrence for approval of wall signage pursuant to Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 66, Section 51, that's commercial signs projecting wall and hanging or in or on windows for Christ's Fellowship United Methodist Church, 10915 Shanefield Road. Turn to the city administrator. If you'd like to present this item, is there someone representing the applicant here this evening?
Thank you, Chairman.
We have any questions for you all? Go ahead.
Staff did review this item for compliance with 66-51 wall signage. This is a new commercial structure, it's my understanding, on Shanefield Road, very near the middle school that's there. We see no issues with the application as presented and we're recommending approval.
Great. And as wall signage, this is not lit, correct? It's not an illuminated sign.
It is an illuminated sign.
Is or is not?
It is
It is. So
an illuminated sign.
where is, maybe I missed it in the drawing. So the sign itself is illuminated as opposed to light, exterior lighting?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was confused on. Great. All right. I think we're good. The comments, questions, we do have the applicant here if there are any. Otherwise, a motion would be just fine.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the request by Grant Lawrence for approval of wall signs pursuant to Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 66 Signs, Section 6651, for Christ's Fellowship United Methodist Church located at 10915 Shanefield Road.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion, Jeff, Jason? Nope, anyone? Okay, so the motion is to approve the request for wall signage pursuant to 6651 of the code for Christ Fellowship United Methodist Church, 10915 Shanefield Road. All in favor of the motion, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This motion is approved. And this is an approval item, so that's it, it's done, it's approved. Is that right? Yes, I said that right. So thank you for being here and waiting. Number 7 this evening is discussion and action on a request by Natasha Smith for approval of wall signage pursuant to Code of Ordinances, Chapter 98 Zoning, Section 72, Old Town Helotes Special District, subparagraph G6B2, commercial signs projecting wall hanging in or on windows for A2G Fit Studio, 14743 Old Bandera Road. Turn it to the city administrator, and is someone representing the applicant here tonight? Okay. If we have any questions.
As stated, this is within the shops at Old Town Helotes in Old Town. So it is relatively hidden. The shop is from Bandera Road, or Old Bandera Road. We did review the sign to make sure it's compliant with the Old Town regulations, and it appears that it is. As stated within the application, it's relatively small square footage, 1.5 square feet, and so we are recommending approval of this item.
So just looking at the pictures, I'm not totally sure where the sign is actually going.
The sign is going next to the front door, it's my understanding. Am I correct in that? Yes.
Great. And I got it. And the suite is 201, all right. Is 202 a separate business? Comments, questions on this one?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
is it illuminated?
It is not. I will say that there is
Be under the light?
Porch light.
there is a porch light there, so it will in a sense be illuminated, but there's no illumination just for the sign.
All right.
And can I ask what color it is? It's a little hard to tell from this photo, or if this is a,
It appears to be black. And she is
Yes.
confirming that it's black.
But, okay. Normally I'd have you come up and put it on record, but this is pretty straightforward, so it's a black sign with white lettering.
Okay.
Jeff, did you have a question?
I was just gonna ask if there was gonna be, if it's gonna be right next to 201, or how are they gonna know that, which,
So
the one or
close.
202?
So maybe, why don't you come on up just for a quick second and just put your name and your business address on the record and then answer that.
So I'm Natasha Smith, I'm the owner of A2G Fit. So the sign is gonna be right next to the number's 201, and the sign's right next to it.
Basically under the light that's there.
Right under the
Yeah.
light then?
Okay.
Very good. Any other questions while she's up here? Great.
Thank you.
We can have a motion for this item?
I'll make a motion. Okay. On discussion and action on a request by Natasha Smith for approval of wall signage pursuant to Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 98 zoning, Section 9872, Old Town Helotes Special District, subparagraph G6B2, commercial signs projecting wall hanging in or on windows for A2G Fit Studio located at 14743 Old Bandera Road, Suite 201, Helotes, Texas. I'd make a motion to approve.
I'll
Is
second.
there a second? Ron? Discussion, Jason? Ron?
No.
Anyone else? Okay, so the motion is to approve the request by Natasha Smith for the wall signage pursuant to code 9872 G6B2, that's Old Town Helotes Special District commercial signs projecting wall, hanging, or in on windows for A2G Fit Studio, 14743 Old Bandera Road, Suite 201. All in favor, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Next item before us is number 8, which is discussion and action on the request by Debbie James for approval of hanging signage pursuant to Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 98, Section 72, Old Town Helotes Special District, subparagraph G6B2, commercial signs projecting wall hanging or in on windows for Cheetah-less Retail Store located at 14837 Old Bandera Road. And Rick, I'll turn this to you, and if you wouldn't mind maybe advancing to the images of the sign too. And Ms. James, you're here, so let him go first. There we go.
Thank you, Chair. Staff did review this item. We are recommending approval. It does comply with the Municipal Code of Ordinances for wall signage. The only concern that staff is bringing to the commission's attention is the proposed sign color. If it's amenable to the commission, then obviously staff has no issue with it.
Okay. Are there questions, comments? As you recall, this item was before us, or not this item, but related item a month ago, I believe it was. But this is for the signage that will go at the front of the business. And we have the applicant here, so if there are questions. And Ms. James, maybe put your name and address.
Yeah,
business
Debbie
address.
James, at Cheetah-Lish, 14837 Old Bandera Road, Helotes.
Questions? Richard?
Yeah, are you dead set on that bright yellow
It's like a honey color.
or honey color?
Well, we were looking for something sort of earth tone because,
If I could answer, I'm Robert James, her husband. This was a Photoshop rendition, this isn't the actual color, it's a honey, more of a honey color than what this bright yellow is. We created this just basically to show what it would be.
What it would look like?
The color
It's-
itself is not that.
So the actual color is more of a,
it's called honey
It's
from
more of a-
Home
it's more of a
Depot.
cheetah- It's more of a cheetah color, to be honest with you, it's not.
Okay.
bright yellow.
And what about the, I'm sorry, if I could just interject, the lettering colors? Are they as
Black,
represented here, would you say?
black and red.
Jeff?
Mr. Chair, I just had a question. I wasn't here last month, but I did notice, reading over the minutes, that, about the other posters and things. That I know the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend disapproval of that, but I believe in reading minutes of city council that it was approved.
Right.
So what is, or what were the end result of those? Are they considered signs? If so, is there a maximum number of signage?
Rick?
The answer is no and no. The city council considers those to be works of art.
By council interpretation as works of art, it does not count against the allowable number of signs for the business.
So this sign will be wood. Just,
Right. And it's not illuminated, correct?
no.
Other questions, comments? Okay, thank you. If there's a motion, we can have that.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the request by Debbie James for hanging signage pursuant to municipal code of ordinances 98 zoning, section 9872, Old Town, Helotes Special District, subparagraph G, 6B2, commercial signs for a Cheetah-Lish retail store located at 14837 Old Bandera Road.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Sure. Discussion, Jeff?
I guess just as long as those colors are, the yellow is muted. I mean, like I said, in our packet and everything, it looks like it's a neon highlighter. And it doesn't really,
I understand that between the Photoshop and the duplication of photographs,
Yeah.
Could we amend the motion to say, well, the understanding that the color is a muted honey color?
Sure.
yeah.
That's all right with you, Jeff?
Sure.
Yep.
So the motion's been amended to reflect discussion that the applicant has indicated the color is more of a honey
Honey?
yellow than a highlighter yellow. Though, of course, we all realize that color is often in the eye of the beholder, so one person's honey is another person's highlighter, but we've had this type of discussion before with other signs and situations, so as long as everybody knows that this is not precise, not a science. Any other discussion? Richard, you were okay with amending it?
Yes,
Richard?
yes.
So the motion is to approve the request by Debbie James for hanging signage pursuant to the Code of Ordinances 9872 G6B2. That's Old Town Helotes Special District commercial signs projecting wall hanging or in on windows for Cheetah-Lish Retail Store, 14837 Old Bandera Road, with the condition or the understanding, that is, that the color of the sign is described by applicant as honey yellow. All in favor of the motion signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved. Thank you for being here. Next item tonight is discussion and action on a request by Abel Pena for approval of wall signage. Included requested variances pursuant to Code of Ordinances, Chapter 6651, that's signs, commercial signs, projecting wall and hanging or in or on windows for Great Harvest Bakery Cafe, 12415 Bandera Road, Suite 102. Turn it over to the city administrator, and as one of you guys has to be representing, if we have questions.
Thank you, Chair. Staff did review this item. I will tell you, unfortunately, there are some mistakes that were included within the agenda item request form, and so I want to clarify those to you tonight. Going down the list, the purpose of the signs that are proposed is obviously correct. The size, however, we indicated that they were much larger than they actually are. Both signs are in compliance with the square footage requirement of code. The one on the front of the building is approximately it's a little over 26 square feet, and the one on the side of the building is 28 square feet. Both would be in compliance with code in that regard. There is no issues with height, location, the design, lighting. It's my understanding that these signs they were originally indicated as non-illuminated sign, but I think they're gonna be downlit with gooseneck downlights.
Right.
And so one of the conditions that I would recommend if y'all decide to approve this would be that the gooseneck downlights are fine, but that they be full cutoff. Staff wrote this, and I did review it. Unfortunately, I didn't review it as good as I should have. I don't personally believe that it requires a variance because of the number of signs. Planning and Zoning Commission can grant up to 2 wall signs. Those wall signs have to be facing a street or a pedestrian way in accordance with code. This is on the end cap, and so they did submit a variance request for that, but because it's on the end cap and because the side of the building is a street with a sidewalk, I think that they're entitled to 2 wall signs. That is my opinion. If the commission disagrees with me on that, you can certainly take action as you see fit, and then it would have to go before city council on only that item. If the commission agrees with me, we'll gladly refund the applicants additional money that they provided for the sign variance application. So those are my comments, Chair.
Would you advance to the image maybe of the area? And we have the applicant here if there are any questions. Great. It's hard to tell from that image, but there is a sidewalk there.
There is a sidewalk on the side of the building, and then there is the continuation of the parking drive aisle there as well.
Right. And there's parking at the rear of the facility, right? Comments, questions? Administrators, you noted, called attention to the fact that the lighting should be full cutoff. Just to make sure that's explicit in the, any type of proposal. Lighting is only proposed on the front sign.
That is my understanding, yes, sir.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just want to make sure that the sign placement is going to be as shown in this picture as opposed to the next picture?
Which sign are you referencing?
The front?
Which one? Front?
The front.
So
One
maybe
is
I'd ask,
one is above the band and one is below the band, so the applicant is here and can address them.
if you wouldn't mind, sir, come up. If you would put your name and business address on record and then help out with that question.
Good evening. My name is Howard Benavides, 12682 FM 1560. I'm here to represent Mr. Abel Pena on the matter, and I'm also the manufacturer of the sign.
Okay. So the question was about the precise location of that sign?
Yeah, so we got a couple of different renderings here. The one with the lighting came from his corporate office. The more accurate one is the one that shows the sign, just like that right there.
That's the accurate one, okay.
Yes.
Is it fair to say that the placement of the lights would approximately be as they're represented in the
Yes.
other one?
Yeah, everything just got bumped up.
Okay,
Pretty last minute there.
okay.
Mr. Chair, do we have any say at all in placement of that? Or
Yes,
is
in
that
placement of what?
of where this is at? You know, I just drove by there today, and every other store in that whole strip center is, all of them are below the line. And there's plenty of places with this type of structure above. And to me, I just feel it would stick out like a sore thumb if this sign were above that line and everything else is below it.
Can I make a comment real quick?
Yeah, please.
Mr. Pena did, we did some measurements on it, and it's 39 and a half linear feet. So this sign does come in a lot smaller. He could have gone up to 39 square feet according to code, so he came in at about 26 square feet on this. And the lower section is, this building is kind of a little bit of a projection from the rest of the building as well. But the lower area is pretty low. I mean, we're looking at about 8 feet or so where the rock ends. But he's just wanting to get some good visibility from Bandera Road so he can make sure that, you know, his business is successful.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
can we ask Rick to go to Google Street?
yes, go right ahead.
Where, you specifically want to look at that space or the center, or?
It's on the far end. Be the left side.
Every other one is all below, all the way across.
Is that a mirror image building?
That's on the opposite side right there.
Sorry, let me get this little guy where I need him. Commissioner Wade, would you mind turning the lights off over there? It's kind of as good as I can get.
Yeah, that's good.
So the other businesses really, because of the roof, it looks like they have no option to go any higher.
A couple, can you scroll down the side of the building a little further? Even the two, and that one there, this must be an old Google Street because there's a Fast Payday Loan store at the very end there. And theirs is even below that.
Are those two buildings, sir, are they the same height as the one in the end?
I believe so. The two projections,
Yeah, yeah,
I believe so.
whatever that is.
Jason, did you have a question?
No, I don't think it bothers me so much, because this is a different element, you know, I mean, I know that it's not necessarily rhythmic, but it does read differently than its neighbors. 'Cause it's, you know, to pop up.
As I read it by code, the commission has the ability through the design standards to make a recommendation to council essentially on what would be the preference of the commission. While otherwise this is, I think as we've talked about, it is compliant in terms of the specifications of the code. But in the same way that if someone came in with a, pink and black sign that we didn't like, we would have the ability to adapt to it. So we do have the ability, but it is, at the same time, it's also important to note it is compliant with what the code requires.
I think the maximum height is 20 feet above the ground.
Allowed by code,
Allowed by
right.
code,
This
yeah.
is, I think, 14 maybe.
Yeah, it's approximately 14 to 15 feet. Yeah.
I personally would say I sympathize with what Commissioner Wade is saying, though my sentiment is more that this is compliant with code and it's more of an internal matter for the shopping center rather than the city. That's my personal view.
Actually, on that point, can I ask, was there a master sign plan for this center? Are we aware of that?
Yeah, it goes back a ways. I don't know.
That's back before I was here. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look to see if there is a master sign plan. I imagine that there is not a master sign plan because the applicant is coming here
Yeah.
rather than being allowed by right to do what is with whatever within the master sign plan.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
At this point, we can have a motion to discuss.
I'll make a motion.
Please.
Discussion and action on a request by Abel Pena for approval of wall signage, including requisite variances pursuant to Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 66 signs, Section 66-51, commercial signs projecting wall and hanging or in or on windows for Great Harvest Bakery Cafe located at 12415 Bandera Road, Suite 102, Helotes, Texas. I recommend approval.
Add in the lighting.
Or, with a provision that full cutoff lighting be installed.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion is to approve, and since we're skipping the variance, Rick, this is a straight approval, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so this is a motion to approve the request for wall signage.
Meant to
That's all right,
approve,
no
yeah.
problem.
Okay.
So request for approval of wall signage pursuant to code 6651. That's commercial signs projecting wall and hanging in or on windows for Great Harvest Bakery, 12415 Bandera Road, Suite 102. Is there any discussion of the motion? Jason? Or who seconded that?
Richard.
Richard?
No.
Anyone else?
Abstain from my view.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion is approved. And that is an approval item. Thank you. As you noted, item 10 was withdrawn from tonight's agenda. I believe there's a timeliness issue, and it'll be back before us next time.
No, and I wish to clarify that.
Sure.
Item number 10, item number 10 is essentially a maintenance issue on the existing building. They're painting the building colors that are, in my opinion, clearly within the guidelines of what the design standards would allow. And so on these types of items, we approve those administratively unless they're painting the building black and pink, which of course we would then refer that to the commission. And so we would approve this at an administrative level, and that is why I asked staff to include it within this item to pull the item, because it is, in my opinion, a maintenance of of an existing building.
And does it, which building is it?
It's the building across the street. Essentially, what they're doing is normalizing the entire structure at this point. They are adding some additional stucco, and they are painting the existing building two forms of beige, essentially.
And it conforms to design standards.
Yes,
So we don't necessarily know if it, does it conform to what was originally approved?
that part of the center was not originally a part of the redevelopment. Like I said, what they're trying to do, since it's under new ownership, is what they call normalize the center, so all of it looks as close as it possibly can. That's a little difficult, given the fact you've got a center that was built in 2008 or 9, and then a center that was built in the 1960s. But that's essentially what they're doing.
But is the normalizing of the old to the new?
Yes.
Okay.
But the vast majority of the improvements that they're doing on the building is simply painting, and they're all, again, shades
Sure.
of beige.
It didn't honestly look a whole lot different to me from one. I mean, it's a little lighter, I think, but.
It's
wasn't-
not, well, when commercial structures come in and say they want to paint, particularly if they're going to paint it the same color or almost an identical color, we don't even permit that at that point. But if it was, I mean, this is where a little trust in staff and the code enforcement comes in. If they come in and say they want to paint their building purple, we're going to refer that to the commission, because we know it likely would not be approved.
Okay. All right, appreciate the clarification. Our final item tonight is number 11, which I'll turn over to the city administrator. It is discussion and action on amendments to the Code of Ordinances, chapters 34, 66, 98, that's environment signs and zoning, by providing for planning and zoning to review and make recommendations to council for final action on commercial development and single-family residential subdivision developments, exterior lighting, signage, and conceptual designs.
Thank you, Chair. This item was brought forth for city council consideration and ultimately P and Z consideration from Mayor Schoolcraft. And during the meeting on May 10th, I can tell you that all city council members were in agreement on this. Essentially, what this ordinance would do would make final approval authority over all things that the commission currently has final approval authority on. Those would then be referred after y'all's recommendation to council for final approval. And that, in a sense, is all that this ordinance does. It would still make an applicant go before the commission and city council, but instead of the commission having final approval for signage and for conceptual designs, the council would have final approval on that. I think I can say, without overstepping my bounds, that the general, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, the general consensus of council was that as elected officials and not appointed officials, they wanted to have ultimate say to the electorate as to what is and is not approved. They did not have any discouraging remarks or anything about the commission, and I think you can see that in the mayor's letter here. It was solely the fact that as elected officials, that they feel it is their ultimate responsibility to answer to the residents, and so they want a little bit more input into the process. And that's about all I'm going to say on this item.
Okay? So essentially, this is turning the Planning and Zoning Commission into a recommending body rather than an approval one.
With the exception of the statutory state laws that would regulate, that give you the authority that you have via the plating and the zoning
Right.
portions of our code. All the other conceptual the lighting, the signage, those sorts of things would be essentially an advisory committee then, and council would take ultimate action on those.
So this would be the opportunity for discussion, comments, feedback to council. I mean, ultimately, this is council's decision. What thoughts do people generally have about this? That they'd care to share? I'll tell you, one of the very sort of in the weeds sort of question is, in the past, I couldn't find it in here unless I missed it, when this body recommended approval of certain items, it would thereby require, or disapprove certain items, it would require essentially a supermajority on council.
That would still, that's state law, that would still say the same, and those are for zoning matters.
That's zoning only.
Yes.
Is council, I mean, I would say I certainly applaud council wanting to have this sort of input. I think that a lot of ways it makes sense as the elected officials. The worry I have is, number one, you're asking applicants to now make 2 appearances. And number 2, it takes a lot of time to review signs and whatnot. And I hope council's prepared for that and understands what that entails. I mean, certainly, if you looked at the data that was provided to us, they are seeing roughly half of what we get with signs because they're recommendation items. But they're not rubber stamps, and I know that the Planning and Zoning Commission's review will still be important, but we're adding to council's workload here, and I hope that they're prepared for that and you know, willing to follow through on it as they've indicated. As I said, I think it's great they want to have ultimate oversight, but they are the elected officials. This is an advisory body ultimately, so that's what I have to say about it. Anyone else care to share thoughts?
Mr. Chair, I somewhat have the same sentiments, as far as giving them, you know, more workload, making the public come twice. You know, I do also feel that sometimes, they tend to, I do hope that sometimes they do take our recommendations, but it does seem whenever I read over minutes that a lot of times they overrule what we do recommend. So I guess that's just one of my worries, is that we're
Sure.
just now just gonna,
Sure.
yeah, we recommend this, but no, we'll go ahead and do this.
Yeah, I think that's a fair concern, or something to be sensitive to, and one wants to make sure the 2 bodies are working in concert with one another, and it's certainly council's prerogative to go in a different direction than how this body recommends, though we try to hew pretty closely to what our code says, and sometimes if there's too big or too frequent occasions of disconnect, then maybe the issue has to do more with the code, and we need to talk as a city about revising the code to better reflect.
Yeah,
that
and
orientation.
granted, you know, we do have to work by specific ordinances
Sure.
and rules, and whenever those have to be overlooked or variances, then it does go to city
Sure.
council for them. So, you know, to me, it's like, well, if we do have all these ordinances and rules that we have to abide by,
Yeah, I guess I'd
let
kind
us
of
have
second that,
approval.
second that concern a little bit, in just the sense that when people, you know, when there's something comes before us that they're asking for a variance or something sort of outside the code, and we've, you know, recommend disapproval of that item, you know, it kind of like takes the teeth away from that a little bit, I think, because we're just saying we're not disapproving it, and then you have to go fight for it. We're recommending disapproval, and it seems like city council is willing to approve some things that we maybe were not, in the past. And then that kind of, you know, that's sort of one less hurdle, you know, when people are trying to get a variance, it's sort of one, you know, that kind of drops the bar a little bit on that is a concern that I would have.
Well, the council being elected, I think, we're not elected. And I think it's a little easier for us to say no versus them sometimes, only because they're saying no to voters. And I don't know how much pressure that is, but never been on council, I don't know how that works. But I know that for us, we say no, and sometimes it's overruled, and I'm just wondering if it's because that they're concerned about the electorate. Anyway, that's,
I think it also, and in some ways, it puts more heat on them because, you know, some people may come here and hear a no from us, and, you know, they could fight it, but maybe choose not to. But now they're gonna definitely fight it because it's part of the process.
Sure.
And so things that we would disapprove, and now we're just merely recommending approval, it's still gonna go to city council. And I think my concern is that it kind of takes, like I said, it takes the teeth out of our decision. And so it you know, makes it that much easier to get, you know, to get exceptions and variances than it would have previously.
if we disapprove this, can council approve it?
Oh, of course.
So,
Yes. I mean, this is a discussion item. We could recommend to council any changes.
Well, you
to
actually,
proposed
Chair, have to take action on this item. You,
sorry?
you need to take action.
As a recommendation.
No.
It's approval?
You're,
Can't wait until there's more people here. Half our commission's gone.
you certainly could. There is a public hearing scheduled for the 14th of June
Yeah.
in front of city council, but there does need to be action on this item in the sense of recommending, yes, but you're still taking action, recommending approval or denial of.
Right, or edits or
Yes.
whatever it may be. Yeah, I'm sensitive what Jeff said. We have 3 people missing. I'm also more concerned that we have the council liaison missing who could perhaps speak to this. I appreciated the mayor's letter, and I think that's important. This is a fairly significant change. And so to be as inclusive as possible and give everyone an opportunity and for the commission to hear more directly from council. I mean, I think that the mayor's letter notwithstanding, having no representation from council here is unfortunate to actually speak to it. Not that I find it controversial again and anything inappropriate about it. So I understand that we need to act and give a recommendation, but I think part of that recommendation would be to delay implementation until the council can hear from, this body could hear directly from council or its liaison, give others a chance to speak. That'd be my personal view.
Mr. Chairman, did I read that some of the people weren't gonna be, was that for this meeting they weren't gonna be in, or was that next?
No, so we're going to be down 1 or, you're out next time, we're gonna be down 2.
We're gonna be down next month anyway.
But I would expect and hope that of the 3 people absent, we will have 2 of them here. So I understand the necessity of acting because there's a public hearing. That said, I think it also deserves, unless there's a real rush to get something done in terms of implementation.
I feel like I'm sort of in a tough spot here. All I can tell you is that there are procedural requirements for this to be enacted. You had to have a public hearing on it. You had a public hearing. You have to take action on it in one form or another. City council has to do the same, have a public hearing and take action on it. It would be prudent, in my opinion, for the commission to take some action on it tonight, knowing that there is a public hearing scheduled in front of city council, and this will be on their regular agenda on the 14th. That being said, I don't think that you have to take action on it. You could take action to table it until, or postpone until the following month. But when I say that, and I'm not trying to, I'm just saying that council is expecting to take action on this in June. So, given that, the commission can do what it would like. Just giving you all the options.
Hasn't this happened before where we've had the public hearing and then brought it back to do something else to it?
The public hearing is over and done with. You're fine.
Right.
You have to do something with it tonight. You have to officially postpone or take action on it tonight, because theoretically, the people that would have been here for a public hearing would still be here for this item.
Table it for review?
Mr. Chairman, can I make a motion to postpone it until next month?
You can make a motion.
I'll second it.
Wait, what's the motion?
To table
I'm
it.
gonna make a motion to postpone it and table it until next month when other members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, if we can get their input on this. And I would, even though I do appreciate the letter from the mayor, and Rick, I appreciate your input too from the meeting. I wish I would have done my diligent homework on it and say which members of council were at that meeting and what their views were. I don't think that's in the minutes exactly. So I want to make a motion to table it.
You wanted, yes, I'm sorry, Rick?
I will say to you, do you recall all members of council were there with the exception of Ed, if I recall? All members of council were there with the exception of Councilmember Villanueva.
Was there a second on the motion?
Yes.
We can discuss the motion.
Yes, we can discuss it.
Jeff, anything you'd like to say about the motion?
I just want more input from our fellow members here.
I guess the only concern,
I'm good.
yeah, the only concern I would have, are we gonna have many, are we actually gonna have any more members? I mean, different members, I presume, but are we gonna have, as, you know, more members next month than this, but two of us will not be here next month?
But you can send in.
Yeah,
a
you can
written
send it
deal.
a written thing, and I think we've heard your views tonight, which we appreciate. I don't know who's not gonna be here next month, Mike,
Except
probably,
for Mario, I know.
Mario.
Yours too, I think. You and Mario.
Yeah.
And tabling would be a acceptable action to take by statute.
Yes.
That is an action.
You would postpone to a certain date, and that would be the subsequent meeting in July.
Does council need a affirmative action, meaning approval, recommending approval or not, before it can actually implement?
Yes, before they can take any action.
But this doesn't derail their public hearing.
No, it doesn't derail their public hearing, but it does, I believe at this point, and again, I'd have to go back and read it, but it certainly throws a wrench into them taking action.
Right. But they still hold the public hearing.
That's correct.
And they would end up moving it to their July meeting. After our July meeting.
That
Well-
is correct.
Yeah, I just also think, whenever we make changes to ordinances and everything, sometimes it takes 3-4 months, with our sign, the last sign ordinance took 6 months, I think. Something this quick and this drastic, I just think,
Did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I think it's covered pretty much of that.
So the motion is to postpone or table to the July meeting. Discussion and action, or, yes, to discussion and action on the amendments to Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapters 34, 66, 98, environment signs and zoning, by providing for planning and zoning to review and make recommendations to council for final action on commercial developments and single-family residential subdivision developments, exterior lighting, signage, and conceptual design. So all in favor of the motion to postpone, signal aye. Opposed? Motion's approved. we'll leave it at that. Nothing further needs to be said. We've reached the conclusion of our agenda. Ron, do you have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed, we stand adjourned at 8:02. Thank you all very much.